The world watches with bated breath. Global markets, already grappling with uncertainties, find themselves teetering on the edge of a potential abyss. The culprit, the spectre of protectionism, has returned, casting a long shadow over global trade. At the heart of this tension stands a familiar figure, Donald Trump. His re-emergence, coupled with aggressive trade rhetoric, has sent shockwaves through the global economy. Trump intends to rewrite the rules of global trade with tariffs. These levies on imported goods aim to protect domestic industries from perceived unfair competition. Economists and world leaders fear these measures could have far-reaching consequences. The interconnected nature of modern commerce means even targeted tariffs can trigger a domino effect. The coming months will be crucial in determining whether Trump's policies will usher in prosperity or ignite a trade war with disastrous consequences. The year is 2025, and the world grapples with Donald Trump's trade policies. Trump views trade as a zero-sum game, where one nation's gain comes at another's expense. His protectionist approach has led him to embrace tariffs to shield American industries. During his first term, Trump imposed tariffs on Chinese goods, sparking a trade war. This trade war disrupted supply chains, increased costs, and contributed to market volatility. The global economic landscape in 2025 is more fragile due to the pandemic, geopolitical tensions, and the conflict in Ukraine. The potential impact of Trump's protectionist policies could be even more pronounced now. World leaders and economists warn of a potential global trade war. The consensus is that Trump's tariffs will harm workers, lead to job losses, and slow economic growth. The global economy is in uncharted waters, and the decisions made in the coming months will have far-reaching consequences. The year 2025 has dawned with unease in the global marketplace. Trump's aggressive trade pronouncements cast a long shadow over international commerce. His weapon of choice remains the tariff, designed to protect domestic industries. Economists and world leaders fear these measures could have devastating consequences. At the heart of Trump's trade agenda lies a proposed 100% tariff on overseas films. This measure has sent shockwaves through various industries, symbolizing his willingness to upend global trade. The entertainment industry, reliant on international markets, stands to lose billions. The implications extend beyond the silver screen, affecting a wide range of imported goods. The imposition of tariffs could disrupt supply chains, drive up prices, and stifle economic growth. The year 2025 promises to be turbulent for global trade, and those who fail to adapt risk being left behind. The entertainment industry finds itself in the crosshairs of Trump's protectionist trade policies. The proposed 100% tariff on overseas films aims to level the playing field for American productions. Trump argues that foreign governments give their domestic film industries an unfair advantage. Hollywood, reliant on international markets, faces significantly diminished returns. The ripple effects would be felt throughout the industry, from writers to distributors. The livelihoods of thousands are intertwined with Hollywood's success. The film industry thrives on international collaboration and cultural exchange. The tariff threatens to erect barriers to this exchange, leading to a less vibrant global film landscape. The ripple effects would also impact related sectors like tourism and merchandise, the silver screen risks becoming a casualty in the escalating trade war. Beyond Hollywood, Trump's tariffs target new industries. The automotive industry, a pillar of global trade, stands as a prime target. The industry's reliance on global supply chains makes it vulnerable to tariffs. The electric vehicle market faces unique challenges in this environment. Disruptions to supply chains could stifle innovation and slow the transition to cleaner technologies. The technology sector, particularly the semiconductor industry, is also vulnerable. Semiconductors are often designed, manufactured, and assembled globally. Disruptions can have cascading effects throughout the technology sector. The renewable energy industry, reliant on global supply chains, is not immune. Tariffs could drive up costs and hinder the deployment of renewable technologies. A house divided, the domestic battle lines over tariffs. Trump's trade pronouncements resonate with those left behind by globalization. For them, tariffs represent a way to protect American workers and industries. However, businesses, economists, and consumer groups argue that tariffs will harm the economy. Businesses warn that tariffs will lead to higher costs and job losses. Economists argue that tariffs will stifle economic growth and fuel inflation. Consumer groups warn that tariffs will disproportionately impact low and middle-income households. Certain regions and industries, particularly those reliant on manufacturing and exports, will bear the brunt. The agricultural sector, already caught in previous trade disputes, faces lost markets and declining incomes. The battle lines over tariffs reflect a broader debate about the role of government in the economy and the future of American leadership. The global supply chain, a delicate dance disrupted. In the intricate ballet of global commerce, the supply chain reigns supreme. A complex and finely tuned choreography of interconnected networks, it orchestrates the seamless flow of raw materials, components, and finished goods across continents, fueling economic growth and delivering the products we rely on daily. Yet this delicate dance is easily disrupted. The imposition of tariffs, those seemingly straightforward levies on imported goods, acts as a rogue element in this intricate performance, introducing chaos and uncertainty into a system that thrives on predictability and precision. The consequences of this disruption are far-reaching, impacting businesses and consumers alike. Imagine a symphony orchestra, each instrument playing its part in perfect harmony to create a masterpiece of sound. Now imagine a conductor randomly silencing instruments, disrupting the tempo and throwing the entire performance into disarray. This is the impact of tariffs on global supply chains. When the cost of imported components skyrockets due to tariffs, manufacturers are forced to make difficult choices. Some may attempt to absorb these increased costs, squeezing their profit margins and jeopardizing their long-term viability. Others may be forced to pass these costs onto consumers in the form of higher prices, dampening demand and potentially leading to a decline in sales. The ripple effects of these disruptions extend far beyond the immediate industries targeted by tariffs. The interconnected nature of global supply chains means that a disruption in one sector can quickly cascade through the entire system, impacting businesses that may not even directly import or export goods. For example, a tariff on steel imported from China may initially impact the construction industry, driving up the cost of building materials. However, this increase in steel prices will also affect manufacturers of automobiles, appliances, and countless other products that rely on steel as a key input, ultimately leading to higher prices for consumers across the board. The imposition of tariffs can also lead to shortages and delays as businesses struggle to adjust to the new trade landscape. Finding alternative suppliers, renegotiating contracts, and rerouting shipments takes time and resources, often resulting in production delays and missed deadlines. Consumers may find themselves facing empty shelves, longer wait times for deliveries, and a general sense of uncertainty about the availability of the goods they rely on. The global supply chain, once a marvel of efficiency and interconnectedness, risks becoming a bottleneck, stifling economic growth and undermining the very foundations of global trade. Inflationary pressures, the hidden cost of protectionism. Inflation, that insidious economic force that erodes the purchasing power of our hard-earned money, lurks in the shadows of protectionist trade policies. While often touted as a shield for domestic industries and a weapon against unfair competition, tariffs carry a hidden cost, the potential to fuel inflationary pressures that ripple through the economy, impacting businesses and consumers alike. The imposition of tariffs, those seemingly straightforward levies on imported goods, sets in motion a chain reaction that can drive up prices across a wide range of goods and services, eroding consumer confidence and stifling economic growth. At the heart of this inflationary spiral lies the simple principle of supply and demand. When tariffs make imported goods more expensive, businesses that rely on those goods as inputs for their products face a dilemma: absorb the increased costs, squeezing their profit margins, or pass those costs onto consumers in the form of higher prices. In many cases, businesses have little choice but to raise prices, as the alternative, absorbing the full brunt of the tariff, could lead to losses, layoffs, and even bankruptcy. As businesses raise prices in response to tariffs, the cost of living for consumers begins to creep upward. Everyday essentials, from groceries and clothing to electronics and automobiles, become more expensive, stretching household budgets and leaving consumers with less disposable income. This decline in purchasing power can have a ripple effect throughout the economy as consumers cut back on discretionary spending, leading to reduced demand and potentially triggering a slowdown in economic growth. The inflationary impact of tariffs can be particularly acute in industries that rely heavily on imported components or raw materials. For example, the automotive industry, with its complex global supply chains and reliance on parts sourced from around the world, is highly susceptible to tariff-induced price increases. Tariffs on steel and aluminum, for example, can drive up the cost of producing vehicles, leading to higher prices for consumers and potentially impacting sales. The same principle applies to a wide range of industries, from electronics and appliances to construction and manufacturing. Perhaps most concerning is the potential for tariffs to exacerbate existing inflationary pressures. In an economic environment already grappling with rising inflation, driven by factors such as supply chain disruptions and increased energy costs, the imposition of tariffs can act as an accelerant, fueling a vicious cycle of price increases that becomes increasingly difficult to control. Central banks, tasked with maintaining price stability, may be forced to raise interest rates more aggressively to combat inflation, potentially dampening economic growth and increasing the risk of a recession. The tech sector's tightrope walk innovation in the crosshairs. In the fast-paced arena of technological advancement, where innovation reigns supreme, and the next groundbreaking discovery is always on the horizon, the tech sector finds itself performing a precarious balancing act. The pursuit of progress, fueled by global collaboration and the free flow of ideas, is increasingly at odds with the rising tide of protectionism and the spectre of a global trade war. The imposition of tariffs, those blunt instruments of economic policy, threatens to disrupt the delicate ecosystem that has allowed the tech sector to flourish, potentially stifling innovation and jeopardizing the very industries that hold the key to future economic prosperity. The tech sector, more than perhaps any other, is reliant on the seamless functioning of global supply chains. The components that power our smartphones, computers, and countless other electronic devices are often designed, manufactured, and assembled in different parts of the world, reflecting a level of specialization and interconnectedness that has become a hallmark of the global economy. Disruptions to these intricate supply chains, whether through tariffs, export controls, or other protectionist measures, can have a cascading effect throughout the tech sector, leading to delays, shortages, and increased costs. The imposition of tariffs on imported components, for example, can directly impact the bottom line of tech companies, forcing them to either absorb the increased costs or pass them on to consumers in the form of higher prices. In a highly competitive market, where consumers are accustomed to rapid innovation and falling prices, such price increases can have a significant impact on demand, potentially slowing down the adoption of new technologies and hindering the growth of the tech sector as a whole. Moreover, tariffs can stifle innovation by disrupting the free flow of ideas and collaboration that has long been a driving force in the tech industry. Research and development, often conducted in a globalized environment where researchers from different countries collaborate on cutting-edge projects, can be hindered by restrictions on the movement of people, data, and technology. The imposition of tariffs, particularly when coupled with other protectionist measures, risks creating a more insular and less dynamic tech sector, one where innovation is stifled and the pace of progress slows. This potential chilling effect on innovation is particularly concerning given the pivotal role that the tech sector plays in driving economic growth and addressing some of the world's most pressing challenges. From artificial intelligence and machine learning to renewable energy and biotechnology, the tech sector is at the forefront of developing solutions to issues such as climate change, healthcare, and education. Stifling innovation in this sector through protectionist trade policies risks not only hindering economic progress, but also jeopardizing our ability to address these global challenges effectively. The automotive industry stores a wrench in the gears of progress. The automotive industry, a global behemoth that has long been a symbol of industrial might and economic progress, finds itself caught in the crosshairs of escalating trade tensions. The imposition of tariffs, those seemingly straightforward levies on imported goods, has thrown a wrench into the intricate gears of this complex industry, disrupting supply chains, driving up costs, and threatening to stall its engine of growth. The consequences of this disruption are far-reaching, impacting not only the millions of workers employed in the automotive sector, but also the broader economy and the environment. The automotive industry, more than perhaps any other, is a testament to the interconnected nature of the global economy. Modern vehicles are a marvel of engineering and a testament to international collaboration, with parts and components sourced from suppliers around the world. A typical car, for example, may contain thousands of parts manufactured in dozens of different countries. reflecting a level of specialization and efficiency that has allowed automakers to achieve economies of scale and deliver increasingly sophisticated vehicles at competitive prices. However, this reliance on global supply chains, while a source of strength in times of stability, becomes a vulnerability in the face of protectionist trade policies. Tariffs on imported steel and aluminum, for example, directly impact the cost of producing vehicles, forcing automakers to either absorb these increased costs or pass them on to consumers in the form of higher prices. Such price increases can have a significant impact on demand, particularly in a competitive market where consumers are increasingly price sensitive. Moreover, tariffs can disrupt the delicate choreography of just-in-time manufacturing, a system that relies on the seamless flow of parts and components to assembly plants to minimize inventory costs and maximize efficiency. Delays in the delivery of even a single critical component, whether due to tariffs, increased border inspections, or other trade barriers, can bring production lines to a standstill, costing automakers millions of dollars in lost output and potentially leading to layoffs. The electric vehicle market, a nascent but rapidly growing segment of the automotive industry, faces unique challenges in this environment. The production of EVs requires specialized components such as batteries and rare earth minerals, often sourced from a limited number of countries. Disruptions to these supply chains, whether through tariffs or other protectionist measures, could stifle innovation and slow down the transition to cleaner transportation technologies. The potential for tariffs on imported EVs or on the components essential for their production has sent ripples of anxiety through the industry, raising concerns about higher prices for consumers and a slowdown in the adoption of this transformative technology. History, that vast repository of human triumphs and follies, offers a sobering lesson on the perils of protectionism and the futility of trade wars. From the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act of 1930, widely blamed for exacerbating the Great Depression, to the tit-for-tat trade disputes that have flared up periodically in the decades since, the historical record is littered with cautionary tales of economic self-harm and unintended consequences. Trade wars, those seemingly straightforward exchanges of tariffs and retaliatory measures, rarely play out as intended. Instead, they often spiral into complex and unpredictable conflicts that leave no winners, only casualties. The current trade tensions, fueled by Trump's protectionist policies, carry with them the risk of sparking a global trade war, with potentially devastating consequences for the global economy. China, the world's second-largest economy and America's largest trading partner, is unlikely to stand idly by as its exports are targeted by tariffs. Retaliatory tariffs on American goods, particularly agricultural products that are vital to the economies of many rural states, are all but certain, potentially igniting a tit-for-tat escalation that could quickly spiral out of control. The interconnected nature of the global economy, a testament to decades of trade liberalization and the rise of global supply chains, means that a trade war between the United States and China would have far-reaching consequences, impacting businesses and consumers around the world. Trade flows would be disrupted. Supply chains would be thrown into disarray, and the cost of goods and services would rise, fueling inflation and eroding consumer purchasing power. Developing countries, many of which rely heavily on exports to fuel their economic growth, would be particularly hard hit, as their access to key markets would be curtailed and their economies would be buffeted by the global economic headwinds. Perhaps the most concerning aspect of trade wars is their potential for escalation. Once the tit-for-tat exchange of tariffs begins, it can be difficult to stop. Each round of tariffs and counter-tariffs raises the stakes, making it increasingly difficult for either side to back down without appearing weak or losing face. The result can be a protracted and increasingly acrimonious conflict that damages not only economic relations, but also diplomatic ties and the broader geopolitical landscape. Finding a resolution to a trade war, once it has reached a certain level of intensity, can be a long and arduous process, requiring compromises that neither side may be willing to make. The casualties of a trade war are not always those on the front lines, the industries and workers directly targeted by tariffs and retaliatory measures. Often the most vulnerable and least equipped to weather the economic storm are those on the periphery, the developing countries and emerging markets that rely heavily on global trade to fuel their economic growth and lift their citizens out of poverty. Trade wars, those seemingly distant conflicts between economic superpowers, can have a devastating ripple effect, undermining decades of progress in poverty reduction, stifling economic development, and exacerbating existing inequalities. Developing countries, many of which have built their economies around exporting raw materials, agricultural products, or low-cost manufactured goods, are particularly vulnerable to disruptions in global trade flows. Tariffs imposed by developed countries on these goods can have a devastating impact on their economies, leading to job losses, reduced export earnings, and a decline in living standards. Moreover, as developed countries turn inward, seeking to protect their domestic industries, they often reduce foreign aid and investment in developing countries, further exacerbating their economic woes. The agricultural sector, a vital source of employment and income for millions of people in developing countries, is particularly vulnerable to the fallout from trade wars. Tariffs on agricultural products, often imposed to protect domestic farmers, can shut developing countries out of key markets, leading to oversupply, falling prices, and economic hardship for farmers and their communities. The tourism industry, another important source of revenue for many developing countries, can also suffer as trade tensions dampen global travel and tourism spending. The economic hardship caused by trade wars can have far-reaching social and political consequences. Rising unemployment, declining incomes, and increasing inequality can fuel social unrest, political instability, and even conflict. Governments, faced with dwindling resources and mounting public anger, may resort to authoritarian measures to maintain control, eroding democratic institutions and undermining human rights. The human cost of trade wars, while often difficult to quantify, can be profound and long-lasting. Beyond the economic calculus of tariffs and trade balances lies a more profound and perhaps more enduring casualty of trade wars, the erosion of trust and cooperation between nations. The global trading system, painstakingly constructed over decades through multilateral agreements and institutions such as the World Trade Organization, is founded on the principles of free and fair trade, non-discrimination, and the peaceful resolution of disputes. Trade wars, by their very nature, undermine these principles, replacing dialogue and cooperation with confrontation and retaliation. The imposition of tariffs, often justified on the grounds of protecting national interests or responding to unfair trade practices, sends a clear signal to trading partners that the rules of the game have changed, that cooperation is no longer valued, and that self-interest trumps mutual benefit. This erosion of trust can have a corrosive effect on international relations, making it more difficult to address shared challenges such as climate change, pandemics, and terrorism. The rise of protectionism, often fueled by populist rhetoric and a backlash against globalization, further undermines the rules-based trading system. As countries turn inward, seeking to protect their domestic industries and workers from foreign competition, they risk triggering a domino effect, with each protectionist measure prompting retaliatory actions from trading partners. The result can be a gradual unraveling of the global trading system, leading to a more fragmented, less efficient, and ultimately less prosperous global economy. In a world already grappling with complex and interconnected challenges, from climate change to pandemics to geopolitical instability, the importance of dialogue, cooperation, and a commitment to free and fair trade cannot be overstated. Trade wars, with their potential to escalate into economic conflicts with far-reaching consequences, represent a dangerous detour from the path of cooperation and a threat to the very foundations of the global order. The stakes are high, not only for the global economy, but also for the future of international relations and the well-being of people around the world. In the intricate web of global finance, where trillions of dollars change hands electronically every day, currency markets stand as sensitive barometers of economic sentiment and geopolitical stability. These markets, where currencies are bought and sold like any other commodity, are inextricably linked to the ebb and flow of global trade. When trade flourishes, currencies tend to reflect the relative strength of their underlying economies. However, when the spectre of protectionism rears its head and the threat of trade wars looms, currency markets can become volatile battlegrounds, subject to sudden and unpredictable swings that can leave businesses and investors reeling. The imposition of tariffs, those seemingly straightforward levies on imported goods, can trigger a chain reaction in currency markets. As tariffs drive up the cost of imported goods, they can fuel inflation, eroding the purchasing power of consumers and potentially leading to a decline in economic growth. This in turn can weigh on the value of a country's currency, as investors become less confident in its long-term economic prospects. Moreover, tariffs can disrupt the delicate balance of trade between countries. leading to imbalances that can further destabilize currency markets. The US dollar, long considered a safe haven currency in times of global uncertainty, finds itself facing an uncertain fate in the face of escalating trade tensions. On the one hand, the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency, underpinned by the depth and liquidity of US financial markets, could provide a buffer against extreme volatility. In times of crisis, investors often flock to the safety of US Treasury bonds, boosting demand for the dollar. However, the weaponization of trade policy and the potential for a prolonged trade war could undermine confidence in the US economy and its commitment to free and fair trade, potentially eroding the dollar's long-held advantage. For businesses engaged in international transactions, the volatility in currency markets sparked by trade wars can create significant challenges. Fluctuations in exchange rates can erode profit margins, make it difficult to price goods and services competitively, and introduce a level of uncertainty that can make long-term planning all but impossible. Hedging strategies, while offering some protection against currency fluctuations, can be costly and complex, particularly for small and medium-sized enterprises that may lack the resources and expertise to navigate the intricacies of currency markets. The winds of trade wars blow cold on the face of global investment, sending shivers down the spines of even the most seasoned investors. As uncertainty grips the global economy and the spectre of protectionism casts a long shadow, investment flows, those lifebloods of economic growth and development, can shift dramatically, leaving some sectors parched and others unexpectedly awash in capital. Deciphering these shifts, understanding the motivations of investors in times of heightened risk, is crucial for anyone seeking to navigate the treacherous terrain of global markets. When trade wars erupt, investor sentiment, that fickle beast that drives so much of market activity, can sour quickly. Risk appetite diminishes as investors become more concerned with preserving capital than seeking out potentially lucrative but uncertain opportunities. This flight to safety often manifests as a shift away from emerging markets perceived as riskier and more vulnerable to global economic headwinds, and toward more established and stable economies. Stock markets, those barometers of corporate profitability and economic confidence, can experience heightened volatility as investors react to news headlines, policy pronouncements, and the unpredictable twists and turns of trade negotiations. In this environment of heightened uncertainty, certain assets often emerge as safe havens, attracting investors seeking shelter from the storm. Gold, that ancient store of value, often experiences a surge in demand during times of geopolitical uncertainty, as investors seek to hedge against inflation and the potential for economic turmoil. US Treasury bonds, backed by the full faith and credit of the US government, also tend to benefit from a flight to safety as investors prioritize capital preservation over higher returns. The Swiss franc, renowned for its stability and neutrality, often appreciates in value as investors seek a safe haven for their capital. However, amidst the turmoil and uncertainty, some investors, ever on the lookout for opportunity, may see a chance to profit from the market dislocations created by trade wars. Certain sectors deemed less vulnerable to tariffs or potentially benefiting from protectionist policies may attract increased investment. Domestic industries, shielded from foreign competition by tariffs, may see their fortunes rise, at least in the short term. Companies with diversified supply chains, less reliant on imports from countries targeted by tariffs, may also fare better than their more exposed counterparts. The race to harness the transformative power of quantum computing, a technology with the potential to revolutionize fields as diverse as medicine, materials science, and artificial intelligence, has become a global endeavor, with nations and corporations alike investing heavily in research and development. Yet this quest for technological supremacy, often portrayed as a collaborative effort to unlock the mysteries of the quantum realm, is not immune to the chill winds of protectionism and the potential fallout from a global trade war. The quantum computing sector, with its reliance on global supply chains, international collaboration, and the free flow of ideas, stands as a microcosm of the vulnerabilities of technological innovation in an increasingly multipolar world. The development and deployment of quantum computers rely on a complex and interconnected web of technologies, materials, and expertise sourced from around the world. From the specialized chips at the heart of these machines to the cryogenic systems required to keep them at ultra-low temperatures, the quantum supply chain spans continents, reflecting a level of globalization that has become a hallmark of the technology sector. Disruptions to this intricate network, whether through tariffs, export controls, or other protectionist measures, can have a cascading effect, delaying research, increasing costs, and potentially hindering progress in this crucial field. Tariffs on imported components, for example, can directly impact the bottom line of quantum computing companies, forcing them to either absorb the increased costs or pass them on to research institutions and early adopters, potentially slowing down the pace of innovation. Export controls, often imposed on national security grounds, can restrict the flow of sensitive technologies and components, making it more difficult for researchers in different countries to collaborate on cutting-edge projects. The free flow of ideas, essential for scientific progress, can also be stifled by restrictions on travel, visa policies, and the exchange of academic research. The potential for trade wars to disrupt the quantum computing sector extends beyond immediate economic considerations. International collaboration, a cornerstone of scientific advancement, is essential for tackling the complex challenges of quantum research and development. Researchers from different countries, often with complementary expertise and resources, rely on each other to push the boundaries of knowledge and accelerate the pace of innovation. Trade barriers, by restricting the flow of people, ideas, and technologies, risk creating a more insular and less dynamic research environment, potentially hindering progress in a field with far-reaching implications for humanity. The quantum computing sector, with its globalized nature and reliance on international collaboration, serves as a potent reminder of the interconnectedness of the global economy and the potential for trade wars to disrupt not only traditional industries but also the cutting-edge technologies that will shape the future. As nations grapple with the challenges of a multipolar world, finding a path toward cooperation and a rules-based trading system will be essential for ensuring that the pursuit of technological progress remains a force for good, driving innovation, economic growth, and shared prosperity. The quantum realm, a realm of subatomic particles and mind-bending physics, might seem a world away from the rough-and-tumble arena of global trade, yet the two are inextricably intertwined. The burgeoning field of quantum computing, with its promise of exponentially faster calculations and the ability to solve problems currently intractable for even the most powerful classical computers, has emerged as a focal point for international collaboration and, increasingly, a potential flashpoint in the escalating trade tensions that threaten to reshape the global economic order. To understand the vulnerability of quantum computing to the vagaries of trade, one must first appreciate its globalized nature. Unlike many technological advancements of the past, often confined within the borders of a single nation or region, quantum computing has emerged as a truly global endeavor, fueled by the collective wisdom, expertise, and resources of researchers and companies spanning continents. From the fundamental breakthroughs in quantum physics, often the result of collaborative efforts between scientists from different countries, to the development of the sophisticated hardware and software that power these machines, international cooperation has been essential to the progress made thus far. This open and collaborative ethos, deeply embedded in the DNA of the quantum computing community, stands in stark contrast to the zero-sum mentality that often underlies protectionist trade policies. The imposition of tariffs, those blunt instruments of economic nationalism, threatens to disrupt the delicate web of relationships, supply chains, and knowledge sharing that has allowed quantum computing to flourish. The free flow of ideas, essential for scientific progress, can be stifled by restrictions on travel, visa policies, and the exchange of academic research, potentially isolating researchers and slowing the pace of discovery. Moreover, tariffs can disrupt the delicate choreography of global supply chains, those intricate networks that deliver the specialized components and materials essential for building and operating quantum computers. The production of these components often involves multiple countries, each contributing a specific expertise or resource. Disruptions to this intricate dance, whether through tariffs, export controls, or other protectionist measures, can introduce delays, increase costs, and create uncertainty for companies and research institutions engaged in this rapidly evolving field. Section 2. Choking the supply chain, from rare earths to superconducting wires. The allure of quantum computing lies in its potential to unlock solutions to some of humanity's most pressing challenges, from From developing life-saving drugs and designing new materials to optimizing complex logistics and breaking the encryption codes that protect our digital lives. Yet this transformative technology, for all its promise, relies on a surprisingly mundane but no less critical factor: access to a stable and secure supply of specialized materials and components. And it is here, in the often overlooked realm of supply chains, where the potential for trade wars to disrupt the quantum revolution becomes most apparent. Quantum computers, unlike their classical counterparts that rely on silicon-based transistors, harness the bizarre properties of quantum mechanics, such as superposition and entanglement, to perform calculations. These exotic phenomena, while holding the key to unprecedented computing power, demand equally exotic materials and engineering. Superconducting wires, cooled to temperatures colder than the vacuum of space, carry electrical current with zero resistance, enabling the creation of quantum bits or qubits, the fundamental building blocks of quantum information. Rare earth elements, with their unique magnetic and optical properties, find applications in lasers, magnets, and other components essential for manipulating and controlling qubits. The challenge, and the vulnerability, lies in the fact that the production of these critical materials and components is often concentrated in a handful of countries. China, for example, possesses a near monopoly on the mining and processing of many rare earth elements, giving it significant leverage in the global supply chain. Disruptions to this supply, whether through natural disasters, political instability, or, most concerningly, deliberate actions such as export controls or tariffs, could have a ripple effect throughout the quantum computing industry. This could lead to price spikes, shortages, and delays in the development and deployment of these transformative technologies. The weaponization of supply chains, once a theoretical concern, has become an increasingly stark reality in recent years as geopolitical tensions rise and nations become more assertive in leveraging their economic and technological advantages. The potential for tariffs and export controls to be used as tools of coercion to restrict access to critical materials and components in order to gain leverage in trade disputes or stifle technological competition poses a significant threat to the continued progress of quantum computing and other cutting-edge technologies. Section 3. The Quantum Cold War nationalism threatens scientific progress. The race to achieve quantum supremacy, that elusive milestone where a quantum computer demonstrably outperforms the most powerful classical computers in a specific task, has taken on an increasingly geopolitical dimension. Nations recognizing the transformative potential of quantum computing for economic competitiveness, national security, and scientific discovery are pouring billions of dollars into research and development, eager to establish themselves as leaders in this burgeoning field. Yet, this quest for technological dominance, if not carefully managed, risks devolving into a zero-sum game, a quantum Cold War where the pursuit of national advantage trumps the spirit of scientific cooperation and, ultimately, hinders progress for all. The potential for trade wars to fuel this technological arms race is significant. As tariffs and other protectionist measures disrupt global supply chains, restrict the flow of talent, and create an environment of mistrust and suspicion, nations may be tempted to retreat behind technological barriers, hoarding their discoveries and seeking to develop quantum technologies in isolation. This fragmentation of the global research community, a stark reversal from the collaborative spirit that has characterized much of quantum science to date, would have profound consequences for the pace of innovation and the diffusion of knowledge. Moreover, the uneven distribution of resources and expertise in the field of quantum computing raises concerns about the potential for a world divided by quantum haves and have-nots. Developed countries with their established research institutions, deep pockets, and access to skilled workforces may be better positioned to weather the storm of a trade war and emerge as leaders in the quantum era. Developing countries lacking these advantages risk being left behind, deprived of the economic and societal benefits that quantum technologies promise. The stakes are simply too high to allow the pursuit of national advantage to derail the promise of quantum computing. The challenges facing humanity in the 21st century, from climate change to pandemics to resource scarcity, demand global cooperation and a shared commitment to scientific progress. The quantum revolution, if it is to benefit all of humanity, must be grounded in the principles of open science, international collaboration, and a recognition that the pursuit of knowledge transcends national borders. Section 1. The Gathering Storm, Preparing for a Tumultuous 2025. The year 2025 dawns with a sense of foreboding, a palpable tension hanging heavy in the air. The global economy, already navigating a treacherous landscape of pandemic aftershocks, geopolitical instability, and the looming threat of climate change, now faces a new and potentially devastating challenge: the resurgence of protectionist trade policies. Donald Trump's return to the world stage, armed with his signature brand of economic nationalism and a penchant for tariffs, has sent shockwaves through the interconnected web of global commerce, leaving businesses and investors scrambling for cover as the storm clouds gather. The potential fallout from Trump's protectionist agenda is as vast as it is difficult to predict with certainty. What began with a seemingly targeted tariff on overseas films, a shot across the bow of Hollywood, and its global reach has quickly escalated into a much broader assault on the very foundations of the global trading system, from automobiles and electronics to renewable energy technologies and the critical minerals that underpin the digital age. No sector appears immune from the crosshairs of Trump's tariffs. And with each passing day, the likelihood of retaliatory actions from major trading partners, particularly China, grows, raising the specter of a full-blown global trade war. The consequences of such a conflict would be nothing short of disastrous. The intricate and finely tuned machinery of global trade, responsible for lifting millions out of poverty, driving innovation and delivering the goods and services we rely on daily, would grind to a halt. Supply chains, already strained by the pandemic, would be thrown into chaos, leading to shortages, delays, and skyrocketing prices. Businesses, large and small, would face a perfect storm of rising input costs, shrinking markets, and dwindling consumer demand. The global economy, already teetering on the brink, could be plunged into a deep and protracted recession. In this environment of heightened uncertainty and risk, knowledge is power. Understanding the potential fallout from Trump's protectionist policies, the interconnected nature of global trade, and the likelihood of retaliatory actions is essential for businesses and investors alike. Those who bury their heads in the sand, clinging to the hope that the storm will pass, risk being caught unprepared and swept away by the economic currents. The time for complacency is over. The time for vigilance, adaptability, and strategic planning is now. Section 2. Navigating the Maelstrom. Strategies for an Uncertain Future. The global economy in 2025 resembles a ship caught in a maelstrom, buffeted by unpredictable currents and threatened by towering waves of uncertainty. The captain's orders ring out: all hands on deck. This is no time for complacency or wishful thinking. Survival, let alone success, demands adaptability, resilience, and a willingness to chart a course through uncharted waters. For businesses and investors alike, the ability to navigate this tumultuous landscape will depend on a combination of strategic foresight, agility, and a keen understanding of the forces at play. Diversification, that time-honored strategy for mitigating risk, takes on a new urgency in the face of escalating trade tensions. Relying too heavily on a single supplier, market, or region exposes businesses to the full brunt of tariffs, export controls, and other protectionist measures. Diversifying supply chains, sourcing components and materials from multiple countries can provide a buffer against these shocks, ensuring a more stable and resilient flow of goods. Similarly, exploring alternative markets, particularly in regions less affected by trade disputes, can reduce dependence on traditional trading partners and open up new avenues for growth. Strategic partnerships, both domestically and internationally, can also provide a lifeline in turbulent times. Collaborating with companies that possess complementary strengths, whether in manufacturing, logistics, or market access, can enhance competitiveness, reduce costs, and provide access to new technologies and expertise. Joint ventures, cross-licensing agreements, and other forms of strategic alliances can create a win-win scenario, allowing companies to pool resources, share risks, and weather the storm together. Perhaps the most important strategy for navigating the uncertain waters of 2025 and beyond is to stay informed. The global trade landscape is constantly evolving, with new policies, regulations, and geopolitical developments emerging at a rapid pace. Businesses and investors must remain vigilant, closely monitoring global events, tracking trade data, and staying abreast of the latest pronouncements from policymakers. This constant flow of information, while daunting, is essential for making informed decisions, anticipating potential disruptions, and adapting strategies accordingly. The year 2025 promises to be a defining one for the global economy. The choices made by policymakers, businesses, and investors in the coming months and years will determine whether the world descends into a destructive trade war or charts a course toward a more open, cooperative, and prosperous future. The challenges are undeniable, but so too are the opportunities for those with the foresight, agility, and resilience to navigate the maelstrom.